Today we are in our inaugural episode about really the celebration of Dungeons and Dragons Olympics. We're going to learn about every nation, and what they represent, what makes them unique, what they bring to the world of Dungeons and Dragons in depth, and learn why this might be a fun place to hang out at your D&D sessions. Vince, how are you doing, and where are we going today?
Buddy, I am so excited today. I'm excited for multiple reasons, okay? One, I'm just excited, as always, to talk about role-playing games and D&D. Two, I'm excited because we're going to talk about Eberron today. And three, I'm excited because I am knowingly, apparently, mispronouncing this word, but it's what I've always called it. I believe the actual proper pronunciation is Eberron, not Eberron.
Because it comes from the base word ebony, which is not ebony, which is a funner word to say now that I say it out loud.
Of course, but I'm going to say it wrong the entire time for a world that I truly love and have spent an egregious amount of time in. So, yeah, we're going to talk about Eberron today.
Okay. This is fun. I have never played a campaign in Eberron, and it's going to be hard for me to say it right and you to say it wrong, and that's only going to make everyone even more irate. Sorry about that in advance. So I'm excited. You've got a bunch of notes, a bunch of research, some visual aids. And so if you're listening to us on podcast format, know that we also are on YouTube, and you get some visuals. It's mostly our ugly faces, but we're going to have some visual aids today. And I've got some questions, and I've got some deep dives that I want to dig into, the questions that I have about this world, what really sets it apart, what makes it unique, what makes it feel. Because to me, when it comes to a different setting, a different world, I want that to feel like I'm in that setting at the table. And how you can go about doing that and how you as a player can interact in a different way because it's a different world means a lot to me. And so that's the kinds of things I want to get into today. But before we do that, we have a few other little topics we like to do at this front of every episode. And the first one is story time. Vince,
That's right.
Do you have any story time from a recent campaign session that you played?
I do. I really do. Today, I want to talk about traps on traps on traps.
Ah, yes.
So my PCs were going back to a dungeon that they had, a couple of them, when they were split up, had discovered. And they made their way back to it. And, they had made through like this trap-laden hallway to find the entrance to the dungeon. And the entrance to the dungeon was a big room and sort of shaped like a half moon, right?
Okay.
And a big double door in an archway, and two seemingly like obviously animate suits of armor standing in front of it as guardians. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was lit by continual light rocks and all of this. And so they roll up to this. Now, they had gone through, as I said, an extremely trap-laden hallway to get here. Okay. And they get to this room, and they're like, okay, well, we've got this guy with us who has some power over the ancient empire that they're dealing with here. It's like the Roric Empire. And he claims lineage directly from it. And he's been able to interact positively with some elements of it before. And he's like, well, I can probably command those statues to stand down, right? Whatever they are, golems or helmed horrors or whatever they are. They don't know. So he's like, all right, well, I'll go. So this is like the ranger, right? He walks out into the middle of the room. And he's like, as he's walking, he's like, listen, servants of the empire, I am, the descendant of the mighty kings, heed my command and allow me and my friends to pass or whatever, right? And they don't move. And when he gets to the center, like they do nothing. They don't react. And when he gets to the center of the room, a big glyph activates and a trap goes off. And it's he's like caught in a big fireball. And then the floor underneath him collapses into a massive pit that he like just barely jumps out of the way of and like is clinging to the edge and like crawls his way out, right? And they're like, uh-oh, there's still traps. And like, yes, the trap-laden hallway led to a trap-laden room, right? What a shocker of shockers here. I felt like I was really communicating what was happening in this area, but didn't cross their minds. So this then begins the journey. And I want to know if you've ever done this, actually. The entire room was just a series of interconnected traps that would all force you to, like, every one you would defeat the next one would try to push you back into that one in some way. Or like, so to give the simple example here, now in the room, you've got 4 pillars and a pit in the middle. Okay. So they could walk around the pit. It's very obvious. But then the rogue spots that there's more glyphs on the pillars because now the pit is meant to drive you to the sides. And when you go to the sides, then a lightning trap goes off. Okay. And when you go to the door, so they're like, okay, they figure out a way across the center of the pit. They figure out a clever way. Now, I know that the pit, when you go over top of it, dispels magic to make you fall into the pit. Okay.
Yep.
But they find a completely mundane way across the pit. Okay. So the dispel magic goes off. Nothing happens because they don't have any like magic on them. Then they get to the door. And they figure out that all these are like magical traps, right? So it's very hard to disarm. They get to the door, and the door has a big giant. Now, what they don't know is that the statues when they get to the door are still just standing there. They don't move because they're just illusions. They're just permanent illusions. And the door is fake. It's not even real.
Okay? Oh no!
Like all of this is for naught, but they'll figure it out somewhere down the line. So the door has a magical trap on it of a gust of wind to push you back into the pit. Okay. Which one of the PCs promptly fails and falls into the pit. Okay. Oh. Now, they had a fun little trick to get them out from dying, so they didn't die from like the 100-foot fall. At the bottom of the pit is the actual door for the room. Okay.
That's where we wanted to go all along.
But that door has a reverse gravity trap on it that when you
shoots you back up.
It shoots you back up. Which would then set off the wind trap again, and you'd hit the ceiling and then blow back out of the room towards the entrance, right? On the way there, the one wizard gets really frustrated at like trying to get into the door because they can't dispel the wind trap.
I don't see why they'd get frustrated by this at all.
It's so crazy. And so he's like, I'm just going to pass wall past the door. And now I know on the other side of this door, it's just stone for like 100 feet. So he passed walls next to the door, and I'm like, okay, you cut a hole out. It's stone on all sides. He's like, I do it again. I'm like, okay, it's 5 more feet or whatever of just like you made a tunnel. And he's like, what? I don't get it. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, man. It's stone on all sides. So like, it was just funny to watch them navigate this over and over again as they went in. When they got through the door, there was another trapped hallway with another gust of wind that would blow you back into the reverse gravity that would shoot you back up.
Oh, yep. Man. You just need the Benny Hill theme song playing this entire time while they're figures out. And you know, like, but there's a level of obvious like irritation and frustration that you get from an experience like that. However, you're constantly like figuring things out as the player.
Right. Because it's a puzzle you're slowly unlocking, right? Yes.
Yeah, and you're seeing the interconnectivity. I always love interconnectivity in various ways in our games, and traps on traps is a great way to do that. But you can do that with traps and puzzles as part of an encounter or as part of an action scene, in working with skill checks and all those kinds of things. If multiple things are happening at once, it just feels more lively and there's more drama involved. So I dig this. Did they finally get through the door, get through the traps?
They did. And what was fun about it was they kept figuring out novel ways to like defeat them. Like, okay, with the wind trap, we can't shut it off, but we know it only blasts for a certain amount of time and then it waits to reset. So they basically all pythoned themselves to the wall, right? So they were all like locked in. They just purposely set it off. A couple of them failed their strength checks, but it doesn't matter. They're just like dangling by a rope, like in the wind for a few minutes, right? And then they just set down and they make their way forward, right? And so they found clever solutions, right? As long as they could think through it. It was meant to be. You could get past it, right? And they then got in. They had a big, tough fight in the next room. There's a bunch of like bone golems that just kicked the living crap out of them. And then they went through some more little puzzling. And then finally they get to the sort of boss fight, right? This sort of end room. And what was funny is at this point in the night, like the bone golems have beat the crap out of them. The traps have done a bunch of work on them. They were really frustrated. They get to the boss fight and they just house these bosses, just take them to the cleaners. It was ridiculous.
Hey.
Like every roll they had was on point. It was just like everything they did was great. Everything the bad guys did failed. My bad guys were just like couldn't make a save to save literally to save their lives. Quite literally to save their lives.
Hey.
And so they just absolutely beat the crap out of it. And it was really wonderful because then at the end of the night, they got this great catharsis of release of like they fought the big bad guys and just kicked the living crap out of them. And it was a great fight. And then, you know, they again walk away happy. So all's well that ends well, as it were.
Yeah, you get that whole Super Saiyan moment. It's like all my frustration and pent up anger is finally coming out now. The quick question I had on that was there was obviously a reason why that like disarming traps didn't work here. Because if they could just disarm the things, you just disarm them one by one and whatever. How did you approach that in a way that doesn't just allow them to, I don't want to say easy mode, but just kind of to just disarm everything track?
Yeah, well, it's one of the beauties of second edition D&D. They were magical traps, and rogues can't just magically disarm magical traps. Only a very few types of rogues can actually disarm magical traps, like spell filters and people like that. So your only option is to like dispel magic or destroy the trap or endure it, right? So they had to like think cleverly around every one of them because they had some dispel magics, but it's actually really hard. They're all cast by, these magics were cast by high level wizards. They don't dispel very easily. And so like there was a bunch of mundane traps leading in here that the rogue got to disarm. She could find them, but she can't shut them off.
So you get the value and you see the some level of reward for playing the class that you're playing and what you're able to aid with without just kind of like tossing everything aside because you can just keep spamming this button over and over again.
Yeah, they can't just press the button. Yeah, exactly. So they know the trap is there, right? And they have to work together to identify what it is. Like the rogue can find it, the wizard can try to identify it, so like they can figure out what they're probably up against. Then they have to think of the countermeasures to try to stop it if they can't dispel it, so on and so forth.
Okay, cool. All right. And I like that. I like sometimes it's can be very frustrating when all your research and best laid plans and figuring everything out, if there's just kind of a easy way around it within the game rules, and that kind of stinks. And when you want your players to think critically and work together and come up with fun solutions that you can't predict, and that's part of the fun, is seeing how your players approach the game that way. But also you want to feel bad of like, well, I'm purposely making things that they can't answer, because that can feel bad as a player too. It's like, well, of course you put this kind of thing in because we don't have that kind of class that can deal with that. It's like,
no, they had all the answers, so it's just a matter of thinking it through.
They got through it. My real quick story is we had Operation Griffin Heist in our
I remember
session.
you were talking about planning this.
So it worked well in that we planned of how we were going to traverse hundreds of miles of trek through the snowy mountains to the north, to the northern kingdoms, over this giant mountain range to get to a main city where we can unlock one of the souls. It's kind of a soul reincarnation campaign. And we needed a way to move fast. And early on in the campaign, we had seen these folks that were known as Griffin Knights out in the wilds. And they're basically, I thought that they were just kind of like police, but with more research and then actually going to where we did the Griffin heist at one of their headquarters towers, they're more like the DNR, really.
Okay.
The Department of Natural Resources, if you don't know what that is.
I knew what you meant, but that's funny.
But that they're trying to keep everything in harmony and check, and dealing with problem animals or beasts and stuff, and making sure the road travel, especially overnight road travel, is safe between otherwise less safe places. And they're not associated with the corrupted governments that we're dealing with in our main city. So we get in there, do a bunch of recon work. We do a bunch of talking in this great hall and talk to all sorts of NPCs. And I do a little disguise self as one of the captains there and go up the tower to multiple levels by myself to kind of just do a recon work, not to actually accomplish anything, just get the lay of the land and use message to tell them important things to remember, or stop here, we need to do this, blah, blah, blah. And it got to this point where it's like, damn, these aren't the bad guys. I kind of feel bad if we're just going to steal a half a dozen of their griffins. But we kind of like came to this conclusion of it's a rental, right? We're going to rent them. We know there's another outpost further north, and then we're going to find a way to make sure that they get back and kind of clear our names a bit. But the whole Griffin heist worked well. There's a whole like in-depth way that in ways we could get bonuses, in ways that we could use different skills and different creative ideas to gain some bond with the Griffin, so they would actually allow you to ride them, because they were really portrayed as very standoffish and downright dangerous if you are not bonded with them. We actually ended up rolling extremely well. We did a bunch of fun ideas, and not only did we get the Griffins for our entire party, but we actually have this massive Griffin, which would be, we kind of made it seem like a Clydesdale compared to a standard draft horse. So it was about 30% bigger. And I found in a room, in an armory room, full plate armor for this Griffin. And we were succeeded so well. We're like, we're going above and beyond. We're doing this. We haven't had alerted the guards or anything yet. Let's go get the armor. And so we bring up the armor. We load up this massive Clydesdale Griffin with full plate armor. And then we ended the session by flying out of the thing in formation. And, well, we didn't end exactly there. We'd heard all these where the actual captain of the guard, the person in charge of this entire place, was out with some knights to hunt down this Drake, because this Drake had killed a knight, and we actually took his Griffin, because we're like, well, he doesn't have a rider right now, and they were going to track this thing down. Well, we get further north, just towards the edge of the where the snowfall starts, and that frickin' Drake finds us, and and I did find a whole bunch of notes in the captain of the guard's office on how it fights, how it strikes, where its weaknesses are, how it actually is, why they got in trouble before in fighting with it. So now we have information, and we don't know how the hell to fight on Griffin back, but we're gonna start next session fighting on Griffin back against a big old Drake.
Well, if you love aerial combat, then stay tuned for the rest of this episode, because it's going to feature heavily. Let me tell you what right now.
Okay. All right. Well, great. So that's our little story time. Do we have any little bit of news from the tabletop RPG world this week, Vince?
We do. We're back into the full swing of the year. So now the news is rolling again. Very excited. We've got a couple of quick fun news items. Number one. So Fallout has an RPG. You may have seen the television show / played the game. I don't know, but it's a thing. And Fallout is releasing a new, basically like standalone supplement. It works with the rest of the game, but et cetera, et cetera. And it's called Fallout Wasteland Warrior, and it's a completely solo RPG meant to be played alone. So you can play through it. Like, all the rules are there. It uses a lot of like random tables and stuff like that, but you can, explore the wilderness and the vaults and, run across all the things you'd expect in Fallout, ghouls and death claws and all that fun stuff,
right?
All by yourself. Which is like fairly common, I think, in the show. And I assume how you play the game is you're normally wandering around with one character.
Yes.
I've never played any of the games, but pretty cool. So I just thought it was really neat. I love I always liked solo RPG concepts. I think it's really fun. And so, yeah, it was cool to see them actually just putting like a whole beautiful book out for it. So pretty cool.
Right. Yeah, DM-less gaming is an interesting thing. I think that really is kind of like the core concept for this next generation of very in-depth board game RPGs, are basically running that kind of a thing for a DM-less game. And so running that into a standard RPG kind of seems logical. I hope it works out well. I hope it's fun. Sounds cool.
Absolutely. Next little bit of news. So MCDM, Matt Colville, obviously, right? So our draw steel, right? They announced a new game, okay, called Crows. Crows, like the bird. Yes, CROWS, Crows. So it felt, from the announcement and some of the art, and I mean, I'm sure there's a difference. This is just my initial quick impression reading over the announcement. It felt a little bit of shadowdarky, though I'm sure it'll play very differently. But it's a dungeon crawling RPG. You go in, you're trying to grab as much loot as you can out of the dungeon before your luck runs out, right? That's what it comes down to. Like, very sort of gritty, deep dungeon crawl. You're just trying to load up and how much can you carry and what's the most value you can escape the dungeon with before you're down. It uses some of the same overlapping mechanics from Draw Steel, but not completely the same system. It's been modified more to fit the concept and the tension and the more restrictions kind of thing.
Yeah, that press your luck mechanic. I had never played a game with that kind of a thing before playing Shadowdark, and it is very, very interesting. I enjoy it. It may be your taste may vary of what kind of games you enjoy, but it's a constant. why I really like it is because it is a constant. You can never avoid the fact of always asking yourself, do we continue? Do we go back up? What is the downsides of us just leaving right now? And the world then feels more alive. The dungeon feels more alive if you don't just get to come and go as you please. Resting in a dungeon should feel like a really bad decision, right? And if you choose to do that, you know you're doing that. The next room might be your last. You keep asking yourself those questions. And that level of tension without having to like proactively do that and a constant drip feed as a DM is very, very fun. So I'm excited to hear about that. Also weird kind of that Draw Steel is so new, and like I don't even know if it's fully fleshed out of all the books are even available yet to.
Yeah, I think they want to offer different games. To be clear, this is a different author. So this is MCDM bringing in a new author to work on this book specifically. It's sort of their idea being published under that banner for clarity.
Which, yeah, that whole thing is really interesting because it's a whole kind of case study in, social media and brand building through something like YouTube, and then turning it's almost turned into something completely different. Like what this is based off of Matt Colville and his great success. And I love his historical YouTube videos. He doesn't really do them anymore. Feels fairly removed from what it's evolved into as now this organization, MCDM. I don't know if that's good, bad, or otherwise. Your opinion may vary.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose in time, I suppose we all kind of it's just natural evolution, probably, right? Just following what feels right at that moment.
To the left, yeah. Though. It's a pretty sharp turn. Interesting. Okay. Any more news?
I got one last little bit of news, which ties into the main topic today. It'll be a good segue. So the newly updated, renovated, expanded, Exploring Eberron is out on D&D Beyond. Importantly, this is like not one of their official products, if that makes sense. This is like one of the partner type contents, if you know what I'm saying, right?
Yep.
But this is written by Keith Baker. So as you will learn, Keith Baker is the original author of this world. Much like Ed Greenwood, he has stayed heavily involved with like the lore and the creation of his world, of his baby, right? So he's constantly contributed to the books, both official and unofficial, and to the larger lore of the world. I mean, it's the same way. If you're not following Ed Greenwood on like Twitter or whatever, on social media, you really should, because he does like realms lore answers and will like talk about really nuanced things in the realms, like what's the healthcare like when you give birth in the realms. He has answers for this stuff. Okay. Like crazy detailed things. And like Keith similarly loves the world as much and like really focuses on expanding the lore, the story, the characters, the understanding of the nitty and the gritty of how the world works. So it's a great book. This was originally made for D&D 5e, Exploring Eberron. It's a good book then. It got really rave reviews. And so this is just updated to the new edition, expanded with new content, stuff like that. So.
Okay. And maybe that is a fun segue before we get into what Eberron is. Like, what do you need in terms of books to really dig into this? Is this new book really all that you would need?
If you were playing in 5e, like our 5th edition, whatever, this would probably be a great book to have. Yes, this would be like the one. There's maybe like I think they also did a Rising from the Last War, I think was the name of the other official one that got published, if that sounds right off the top of my head. I think those two would be an excellent grounding for you that'll more or less give you what you need. A lot of the books that were 3rd edition published a ton of Eberron books. Those are over. If you do love this world and love the idea of it, and you play some in it and really like it, it's worth going back and picking up some of those books that suit your interest. They're very focused. Like some are focused on the nations we'll talk about, some on the religions, some on the dragon marked houses, and we'll get into all of this and what it looks like. And so you can like really pick those old books. Yes, a lot of the rules and stuff are out of date because they're all 3rd edition rules, but the reality is the vast majority of the book wasn't rules. It was just explanations of social structures and characters and things like that, right?
Okay. Very cool. Okay. Well, that's good to know. I just thought that might be a good tidbit of information for folks to start with. So I guess with that, let's dig into Eberron. I'd like us to start with an overhead view of what is this world and why do we care?
Okay. Absolutely. We now go into share mode. Let's go ahead and bring that up. Ba-boom. The world of Eberron. House Civis presents a true and accurate map of the seas and its continents. Okay. So let's talk high level first. I'm going to leave. We're going to stay on this piece of art for a few moments. We have many much more pieces of art to go through. But Eberron as a world is built out of so when he initially put this pitch together, an important thing to understand is that it came about from Keith Baker, as I mentioned. It was like, this is one of those worlds that really comes out of a singular person's mind. Like I said, like the Forgotten Realms, right? Now, that's the original concept. It is important to understand that he did this as part of the contest. Do you remember back in 2002, Wizards of the Coast ran a contest for their who's going to make our next game world? Submit your idea. Do you remember this?
Don't. No.
Okay. It happened. We submitted a world. Like, I participated in this. It was really fun. Obviously, mine did not get picked. It's fine. It's okay. It was funny because we had very similar ideas to a couple of things that ended up being in Eberron. So it was funny. And just a lot of things there. But at any rate, he won that contest. Now, importantly, this went from 11,000 to like a dozen to then 3 got fully developed, and then his got chosen. And the important part, I think his was originally called like Thrilling Tales of Action and Adventure or something like that is what he called the world originally. So it's very based on like pulp and noir novels, right? So have you ever watched The Maltese Falcon? Have you ever watched an Indiana Jones movie? Okay, these kinds of things, right? If you like noir, if you like pulp, if you like action adventure, you know those covers of magazines from the 50s where it's like a torn, shirtless dude fighting off snakes with like a club? You know what I'm talking about? Like a pulp action. That's this world. That was the original idea for this world. Okay.
That's interesting because that's like it's a very like specific thing that or scene or feel that could apply, in my head anyway, to any world you play D&D in. That's just your choice of the game you want to play. That feels more like the game you want to play more than what sets the world apart.
All right, let's dig in a little more. So an important thing to understand about this world and its setting is that it's very much set in a sort of, this is kind of the basis of it, it's set in a sort of interregnum period between like, it was based off of the time period between World War I and World War II. Okay. So if you think of like, if you're a fan of Poirot mysteries like I am, those take place in the 30s. It's this kind of thing. It's these stories. So the major part of the world where most of the story happens just had this huge war, Great War, right? Much like think coming out of World War I, right? Which was supposed to be the Great War, the last war, right? And now there's like this tentative peace. There's no hegemon. It's just a bunch of nations who are all at like tentative peace, but are actively spying on each other and all this stuff. There's like a huge element of political intrigue, of just sort of like that kind of adventure going on in the main world. Okay. And what he talked about as being inspirations for the world was movies, like a lot of different movies and stuff like that is what he really thought about. And so that was things like Casablanca, obviously set there at the dawn of sort of, right in the beginning, early areas of World War II. From Hell, The Maltese Falcon, The Mummy, The Name of the Rose, Pirates of the Caribbean, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Sleepy Hollow, all these kinds of things. And the idea here is really to have the important part to understand about the world is that you have, as we'll talk about, a lot of different power centers, none of whom have an advantage, all of whom have their own personal stakes and interests, and all are vying against each other constantly for supremacy. Okay. And they overlap. It's not just great nations against each other. We'll talk about all these different things. There's guilds and houses and different groupings. And what that means is that there's no like, the big war happened and the world is reeling from that. Like when the main story takes place, where it's set, you're just a couple years out of that war.
Okay.
So it's still burned into the memory of everybody. There's veterans of the war all over the place. The world itself is marked and changed because of it. And so what you get, you mentioned like the feel of the thing, right? Yes, you can do like a pulpy adventure in Forgotten Realms or somewhere else, right? But this whole world and its structure is meant to feel that way, right? To be a high adventure pulp spycraft, like everything is in there. And you can like what you do is you can pick an individual lane, and there's lots of different than other ancillary portions of the world where you can go and have very specific types of adventures, as we'll talk about.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is much like the world that we know, reeling after, especially in Europe after World War One, that the power structures that we knew are at the bare minimum rebuilding, and it is a unknown future of who is going to get the upper hand, and it is uncertain who is going to come out on top. So there's this vying for power, position, place, and you don't know who to side with, and none of them necessarily feel like the right or the wrong or the good or the evil. It is simply a level of uncertainty, and much of this is not done in the public eye or is not done in obviousness, right? This is not like all public shared information kind of.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
So it's just fascinating as like a base setting, that kind of sort of interregnum that, in between these two, like, again, everybody thinks that there's a possibility for another war because when the Great War happened, all the nations fought against each other. There's originally these 5 powerful nations. And in the war, all they did was lose territory. Everybody is worse off than where they started. Okay. Nobody came out the winner. Everybody bled. Right.
Okay.
And what, like, you have now forces who are like, just want power, want to expand, believe their nation should rise to supremacy. You have other forces who just want to do anything they can to like stop another world war from breaking out. Right.
Sure.
Because they think that will be like truly the last war. Right. That's what they call it, by the way, the last war.
Last war.
So at any rate, the whole point of this world is it's very fertile. There's always a lot of different like adventurers around every corner because there's always reasons to be doing something because every group has some plan they're trying to execute and are happy to hire mercenaries that they can write off.
Right.
To go do it.
Yeah. Nobody is fat and happy is what you're saying.
Correct. That's right.
Yeah. At which, again, at a high level is a fairly uncommon take in a campaign setting. Usually there's one great power. Oftentimes it's not doing great things. Or there's 2 vying for power. One is good, one is evil, or both are shades of gray. But here, nobody has that.
Yep. Nobody has the moral superiority. Nobody has the power advantage. Everybody's just like, it's all against all. Yes.
Yeah, that's an elevator pitch for a setting. I think that's unique. It makes me want to hear more. It makes me want to say I can immediately envision myself, walking down, a dirt road between one village and the next. The kinds of things that would happen in this world would feel unique, or I can sense them, and that's a good sign.
Yeah, Keith Baker, I think, has told a story once that like one of his initial ideas for this world was he pictured a dwarven detective sitting in like a large city, and he's in his office, and it's a classic sort of Sam Spade detective. He keeps 2 things in his desk drawers. One he keeps loaded, the other keeps him loaded, and he's sitting there, and this beautiful halfling woman in a red dress walks in. She's 3.5 feet tall, but 2 feet of its leg. And just like the femme fatality, pictured that whole scene, but with the fantasy races instead of the classic thing. And that's what made him got him onto the idea for the world. And I just think that's great. If you love detective stories, like I said, like a Poirot type of story or anything like that, boy, is this the perfect world for it. Right. Because shady murders happen a lot. It's just like a thing, right? So yeah.
Well, there's constant vying for power. And you said a lot of these things are all overlapping. Like that's just a recipe for that pot to boil over.
Correct.
You know.
The other thing to understand about this world is that it is a very high magic world for reasons we'll talk about. Okay, I'll break into why that is. But it is an extremely high magic world. Okay. And the world is mostly divided into, like, most of the action happens on 4 main continents. So that's the picture we've had up the whole time. Your 4 main continents are Khorvaire, Zendrik, Arganessen, and Sarlona. We'll talk about all of them in turn. But the story, as you really tend to experience it or focus on it most of the time, is in Khorvaire. That's sort of the center. That is the Europe, as it were, if you think about it that way. Okay, in the storytelling. And as I said, so it's about many of these things. So let's talk about the nations. Okay, so let's zoom in. Khorvaire is our main focus here. So you can see this is sort of a breakdown of the different nations of Khorvaire. You'll often see things. Go ahead.
It's a good looking map right there.
Isn't it though?
It's a good looking map. Yeah.
But I love this map. I really love this map. I could spend the rest of the show just telling you interesting things about every single thing on this map. Okay? Because all of these have huge, just like adventure hooks baked into them. Okay. Very fast here, Tom or John. Sorry, I apologize. Very fast. I'm going to do a 2-minute super fast overview. Are you ready?
Okay. I'm ready.
Time on the clock. Here we go. Karnath, one of the original 5 great nations, a land of undead where necromancy is accepted. They lost so many soldiers, they turned to animating the dead who now work and live beside them. They love undead and use them, and they're part of society. The Talentia Plains, a land of halfling dinosaur riders who guard their sort of sandy desert home and stand apart from any other nations, viciously fighting against anybody who would stop them. Valinar, a land of proud horse lord elves who think like Mongol-type riders who are masters of swords and just do not give ground for a second. The Mournland, one of the original 5 great nations called Sire, that at the end of the last war, the last day of the last war, suffered a cataclysmic explosion that consumed the entire nation and is now nothing more than mist and ghosts and robots and murder to anybody who walks in. Healing does not work. Life does not flourish. It is a land of the dead that will claim anybody that enters. Thrain, one of the original 5 great nations, a land of religious fervor led by the Silver Flame, spoken through like a 13-year-old who is the only being alive that can speak to the magical Silver Flame and interpret its will. Religious zealots who hunt lycanthropes and fight the enemies of their gods at all turn. On Dare, a land of daring do and adventure, very French sort of coded, a land of wizards who have flying castles and schools, but also love things like swashbuckling and adventure above all else. Breland, one of the 5 original great nations, a land of learning, scholarship, study, and strong soldierly nation, sort of the England, if you will, of the thing. They're industrial. Zilargo, a land of gnomes, communication, magic, and artifice. They build so others may flourish. Dargan, a land of hobgoblins, goblins, and goblinoid peoples who are proud. Empire. They hearken back to the original empire of this land. Before the humans came, they ruled this land, and they seek to rebuild their ancient empire. They are not mere beasts nor ravaging hordes. They are a well-formed military, and their leaders are tactical geniuses. Droam, a land of monsters ruled by 3 night hags. It is a land of safety for things like gnolls and gargoyles and medusae and everything else, who are just the citizens of this realm. They seek recognition to be treated just like any other nation. The Lazar Principalities, a land of pirates and pirate isles, half-elves and elves who roam the seas and are sort of like work for all the other nations to raid them, like doing that kind of hired piracy. The Shadow Marches, a land of orcs and half-orcs where they raise wild beasts and live a peaceful, simple lives among the marshes. And finally, the Demon Wastes, home to the dark, overlords, as well as Rakshasa, hags, and demons of all kinds. A forsaken land where the true evil of this world plots its ultimate revenge. And then lastly, the Eldine Reaches, a massive ancient forest that broke off from Aundair, and Aundair still wants back, ruled over by a massive sentient druid treant.
Holy buckets. You said 2 minutes, and the fact that you did that in 3 minutes and 20 seconds is impressive. And that tells me something, that off the cuff, that they're so unique, each of these nations.
Yes.
And they say something that there's like, the stories are breathing out of you of what could happen in each of these. And yet, I'm not know if I can see the distance. It's obviously a large continent, but they're all kind of nestled, next to each other. Like, you are not too far away from a very different society, a very different nation.
Yeah, here's another view of the world, as you can see, with the different nations' sort of borders kind of mapped out, which is fascinating. These do change every so often. The important part to understand is that all the small nations, like Zilargo and Dargan and Droam and Valinor and all these things, these were part of the other big five: Aundair, Thrain, Karrnath, Sire, and Breland. There is no more Sire. It's the Mornland now. But in the war, they literally just lost these territories because the breakaway factions took them away. It is a very big continent. You asked about size, so it's big. But there are ways to navigate. Yes, it is big, but there are ways to get around.
Right. Yeah, and
it's about twice the size of the U.S. for context.
Okay, that's big. That's very big. Yeah. Okay. So, I like that we're able to see the effects of this war on a map in a way, right? Because I'm sure it would be interesting to see a before and after of what those 5 great nations, the lands that they held before, and then now what it is.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And so
these are your nations. All of these are vying for power, right? And again, the fascinating part about it is all of them are roughly equal in capability and power, right? So there's no like one who can really claim supremacy. So because they're all roughly equal in power and they're trying to avoid getting into another massive war, it's challenging. It's very challenging, right? That's what leads to all the political intrigue and spycraft and stuff like that.
Yeah. And they all, just from those brief examples, you can infer how their goals, their outlook, and their kind of hopes of what they want to be or what they are now and what they were are vastly different. And so you can see how when the lines meet on the map, how things will be very different, or will change based on perception of the peoples of those regions. I like that.
That's right. There's a couple of areas that are like normally the kind of like home bases for operations, or where a lot of story ends up focusing. Preeminent of those is Sharn, which is a city in Breland. It's kind of down here by this, like at the end by this bay. It's kind of down here at the end of Breland. Sure. It's like on the bay there. Think of it like it's their magical New York or London or something like that. It is a city built on a coterminous zone with the plane of air. We'll talk about that in a little while and what that matters. The important part is it can build vertically really high. So it's a hugely tall city, like thousands of feet tall. The towers rise up into the sky, and it's stratified by economic class. Like, again, you can do a whole game in one section of Sharn and have that be a completely compelling game because it's defined down to that level. Right.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, this is the part of me investigating a campaign setting where I get overwhelmed.
Understandable.
Like, and this is not like unique to this game or slight on anything. It's like there's some point in it where I'm like, my brain's like, whoa, okay, I need to narrow down. I need to focus. I need to think of one main interesting storyline, at least for the first arc of this trilogy of a campaign,
Yeah. And Sharn is usually the great home for that. Like all the other nations have representatives in Sharn, like diplomatic representatives there. Some of the great universities are there, like Morgrave University is there, okay, which is like there are big universities all over the continent. And so that ends up being a home where a lot of people come to. There's just a lot of like good little locations in Sharn you can set story and adventure, and then like learn about the rest of the world and slowly expand out. Right.
Okay. Are there any other common areas or fun places to begin that are well kind of supported?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of a tiny little island up here, but this place, Stormreach, okay, which is the home of one of the great houses. We'll talk about that in a moment. But it's so it's very north. This is all cold. This basically think like the United States. That's the okay with geography. So like down here is pretty warm and humid, okay, and then as you go north, it gets colder. So like up here is fairly cold. Yeah. And like this is ice up here. You can see it's called like Ice White Island, stuff like that. You're getting towards big icy places.
I will tell you real quick, Vince, that if you are using your mouse on the screen, that is not shareable.
They can't see it. Sorry, I am. If I move it over here, though, you can see it. There we go.
There I can.
Okay, I got to put it in the right place. I'm sorry. Stormreach Island, which is right here. Okay. I apologize. By up here. So yes, this is in the cold area, which is like up here. But anyways, Stormreach is a beautiful thing. It's a bunch of weather wizards effectively live there. It's the simplest way to describe it. And so it is a beautiful, perfect temperate climate. It's the house that controls all the airships. Okay. We'll talk about the airships in just a moment. And it has a big city on it. It has a lot of easy travel because of the airships to all the other key locations in the world. That house is very involved in a lot of other dealings across the nations. So again, that's like another great home base sort of place to operate. But any of the major cities in each of the 5 nations is like extremely well defined, has tons of NPCs, locales, plot hooks, all of those kinds of things. So basically the capital of each major land is a great place to be.
Very, very cool. Okay. You talked about this being a very
By the way, Sharn was down here. Sorry,
Sharn was down. Yes, I caught that because I used your context clues from your words there's a bay, and then I saw the biggest dot. Yes. You mentioned that this is a high magic world. Is now a good time to dig into that, or was there something you wanted to go over?
No, that's exactly where we're going. Okay. I've mentioned these great vying powers. If it was just the nations, that would be okay, but that wouldn't be really that interesting. It'd be fine. No, in fact, we also have, as I've mentioned a few times, the dragon-marked houses and dragon marks in general. One of the reasons this world is very high magic is because of the great dragon-marked houses, of which there are 12. Okay. One of the secrets to this world is that everything happens in 12s, but secretly in 13s. Okay.
Spoilers.
There's always a secret 13th. So just like for intrigue's sake. The dragon marked houses, basically what happens is if you are a member of a certain species, then you could be born with a dragon mark. And it's usually familial. That is to say, like if both of your parents were dragon marked, you will often be dragon marked. But it is not only familial. Lots of people throughout the society can do it. So and different species have different dragon marks. And in the original telling of the world, although they keep blending this back and forth, like in 4th edition, anybody could have one. And then in 5th edition, they went back to this. And now in 5.5, they're unlocking it again, which I absolutely hate. They should be locked to specific things, to specific peoples, because it's more interesting that way. So for example, the dwarven families who live in Thumrorholds have a mark that allows them they're like the security, the bankers of the world, okay? Because their marks give them all kinds of magic for like arcane lock and protection and stuff like that, okay? The gnomes of House Civis are the communication house. They maintain communication networks. That like having a dragon mark is a physical thing you're born with. It looks like a big giant tattoo. Okay.
Right.
And it gives you innate magical powers. And over time, if you use them a lot, if you're an adventurer and or you gain levels, your dragon mark can expand and get greater and greater and greater and do more and more and more powerful things. So like Civis is the telephone company for the world. They send messages, they manage communications, right? The halflings have healing powers. So they can get like curative powers to remove wounds and disease and stuff like that. So they run healing houses around the world. Okay. Orion is a human. They have powers of travel, movement, teleportation. So they run shipping and all of that kind of stuff, right? And so on. I mentioned the half elves who have storm powers and weather powers. They run the airships and things like that, and so on and so on and so forth, right? Vidalis has like animal friendship and animal training, so they breed monsters and big animals to work for. So like farms don't just have oxen; they have like magically enhanced horses who can like plow a whole field in a matter of minutes, right? That kind of thing. So you just have a ton of people running around in the world who all have effectively innate magical capabilities because of the dragon marks.
What I think is interesting about this as you're explaining it is that all of these, by and large, seem to be more based around society, commerce, culture, and in that by them existing, they actually work better, combined with others, right? Together, if we have the ability to understand and work with weather, and we understand the ability to work with communication, and keeping your gold safe, and animal husbandry to make sure that we can get the right animals for beasts of burden or whatever we needed for, like, this is feeling like making the society stronger by them intermingling and working together.
Yes, they are. It's interdependent commerce, right? They're all working against each other, but they all need each other at the same time. Right. And the important part is no single nation has any claim on these people. They're independent. Okay. The houses, the dragon marked houses, operate across national boundaries, right?
Okay.
There's an Artifice house and all of this, right? There's a spycraft house. There's all sorts of fascinating houses, right? Again, there's 12 of them. And they, have strongholds in every nation. So they're naturally they don't align themselves with the countries. They align themselves with themselves.
So they have like embassies.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And they have their own personal forces and armies and, tools, stuff like that. Like House Thorani is like the shadow house for elves, and they are a spycraft house. They get hired by everybody to spy on each other, including the other houses, stuff like that.
If we
mentioned the airships,
if we all have spies, then we know we all have spies, and then that kind of keeps us in check, right?
That's right. So obviously, this is one of your most fun houses. So I want to talk about airships. It's a big part of this world. It's not like getting your own airship would be a truly amazing thing in a game. That is not a thing that's likely to happen. These are very, very, very controlled things by the house that owns them. What's cool about the airships is their elemental capture. So you can see the giant ring of fire. That is literally a fire elemental who's been put into that shape and is there. And it combined with an air elemental in the engine room, and then the magical craft of the wood, which is called soar wood, which can become lighter than air when infused with magic. Think of it like electrifying metal. You magicify the wood and it floats. Okay. So fire is your motivator, air is the elemental is your lift, and the wood is what allows you to stay aloft. So, and yeah, it's just a really cool part of the world, and it's owned completely by one house.
I like that it's broken down in a scientific way how the magic works for this technology combined with magic to function.
And that's the other important thing. Like Artifice is a big part of this world. This was the world that brought us the Artificer originally. Artifice is a huge thing. Not only is there a whole house devoted to it, but also the gnomes are big, like of Zilargo are big people of it. There's lots of Artificers beyond just the actual house dedicated to it. So because of that, you have just like a lot of magic, especially just like common magic being in everybody's lives. Cities aren't lit by like torches and flame. They're lit by, light rocks and stuff like that. You have magical communication. You have magical banking, right? Just a lot of these things. Magic advanced in this world like technology in our world, and it gets studied accordingly. Because it is common, it has become science. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. And so there's ways to break it down, to describe it, to explain it in a way that's more palatable to the average person.
That's right. And so these houses are another source of conflict, because the house could be trying to work against one of its rivals. It could be trying to weaken one of the nations it thinks is getting too strong, because they don't want one of the nations to rule. Then they would have too much power over the houses, right? And so on and so forth. Okay. So the house could hire you. Somebody in the house could hire you to work against somebody else in that house because they're getting too much power, right? Like intra-scene conflicts are very common amongst the nobles of the dragon marked houses who are always vying for their power within their own house. So at every level you have this kind of conflict, right? Some being very hot, some being very more like, I need you to find dirt on them and expose them and ruin their reputation. Right. You would never kill them. That's insane. What are you, a monster? Like, no, we're just going to ruin them so that I am more powerful politically.
And all of this is solely based on this foundation of needing to coexist at some level in these houses.
Yes.
Like that need for each other makes this much more interesting to me, much more complex, but not so complex that it's hard to follow. They need to keep the world in balance, in check.
Yeah, like House Orion, which is your shipping house. They have many magical things of magical means of conveyance, okay, to like just ship stuff around and get things around on carts and wagons and various magical things we'll talk about. But the amount of shipping that has to be done in the world and by them is way bigger than they can make enough like magical self-propelled carts for. So they have to like get beasts of burden from House Vidalis and so on and so forth, right? Like to actually be the most effective house they can be. And so on and so on and so on, right? And the houses will often have like alliances, temporary and long term and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. So there we've understood the power centers from a nation. We've understood the backdrop of just beyond this last war. We understand the power sectors within the houses and how that all kind of entwines itself in the nation's power struggles as well. Yep. Where do we go from here?
Well, so I wanted to talk a little bit more about Artifice just for a moment, because it is such a major part of this world and both defining whom is in the world, as we'll talk about in just a moment, but also what the world feels like, sort of like you like the texture of it. You asked about that earlier, right?
Yes.
I mentioned that like there's a lot of equivalence to sort of modern conveniences, like the ability to communicate, like the ability to have healing, because like the halfling houses have inns and houses of healing everywhere. If you're an adventurer, you have somewhere you can go and they will happily heal you for donations to the house, right? And stuff like that, or provide you hospitality, things like that. And they set up houses of hospitality or inns and things like that in some of the most inhospitable climes in the world, because that's their whole thing. They're very good at surviving in that way. Artifice itself underpins the entire world, whether it's the sort of continual lights and stuff like that are around, potions being more freely available and unusual things, lots of sort of common magic items, if that makes sense. Like, think of like the spread in D&D of like common, uncommon, rare. You know what I'm saying? There's like lots of just conveniency common magic items that even regular people often have access to. So just the texture of the world is such that there's a lot of interesting little magical things going on and lots of artificers making them, again, for industry and commerce and stuff like that. It is a world where sort of capitalism is in full swing, is what I would say.
Okay. So to ground this, to me, it sounds like in our world on Earth, it would be as if instead of this advent of the combustion engine, which is really the key turning point of bringing together all of the kinds of things that at a basic level brought up society and your base level of items, things that make your life easier, all that kind of convenience related things, and is kind of all around you as time goes on, and the advent of the technology, all based on the combustion engine that happened. That's what we're experiencing as time goes on. It's as if instead of that, the foundation is artifice.
That's right. And so it is a somewhat steampunky world. I would call it more magic punk or artifice punk than that, really. Because yes, there's not really a huge amount of like, there are magical steam engines and stuff like that, but there's not like cars and things like that, to be clear. It's still a fantasy world through and through. But yes, that's exactly right. So, in our real world, you went steam engine and electrification and then internal combustion and all of that. And that sort of was the arc of the Industrial Revolution, right? Here, you're exactly right. Artifice underpinned that entire. Yes, that's right.
And at its core level, just to kind of define Artifice is that it's harnessing small bits of magic for use that the magic user does not need to be there to always do it. Is that right?
That's right. Being able to imbue small amounts of magic into things for simple purposes. Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
That's
so
right.
You have the magical broom, right? That'll go and it'll sweep your abode for you.
Yeah, your little magic Roomba. Exactly. Yes. That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Okay. It is important here, I think, to take a small detour into the occupants of this world. I mentioned how the dragon marks are split amongst a lot of the species. Like, again, this varies in whether or not they're hard locked or soft locked, but whatever. All of those species are very different in the way that they act. And so, and there's also some new ones. Most notably is our guy here in the picture, our big guy, Warforged, who are themselves children of Artifice. Okay. Warforged are sentient, effectively robots, right? I mean, that's what it is. You're a construct. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the player races. There are basically 4 unique player races in the world. Within the core book, if you have the if you pick up the expansion that Keith Baker wrote that was really good on the DM's Guild, he also adds all of the drome races, so you can play Medusa and gargoyles and stuff like that. But anyways, the 4 key races are Warforged, who as I said, were created, and there's this is a whole thing. I don't have time to get into the history of Warforged and all of the secrets of their artifice and the mystery that surrounds them and where did they really come from, and ancient crude druidic Warforged and psionic Warforged and all of this wild stuff. Just know they're robot people. They're made of wood and metal. They're fully sentient. Most of them are only a few years old. Like when you're playing the game, if you're a Warforged, it's more than 10. You're one of the oldest members of your species, basically, probably running around. Because they were all made as soldiers in the last war.
Right? Oh, they're soldiers they were built from the last war.
Yes. And now they're not allowed to be made anymore. They're individualistic. They're sentient. They're not a hive mind or anything like that. They all have their own personalities. They were just they were built and pressed into service.
Okay. And through artificing is how
through artificing. Correct. Through the highest levels of artificing. Yes. Now, they're not supposed to make any more Warforged. But
right.
I mentioned the intrigue and stuff. So, yeah, there you go. And some Warforged look more wooden. Some look more metallic. They can be built from a lot of different elements. But they're just a cool, really neat stand apart. They are the thing that got the most traction in this world as far as species go. Warforged are really cool. It's a really cool play experience.
It's a unique. And so our Warforged aren't necessarily tied to any nation or house either, are they?
No, there was a lot of them in Sire, which got exploded, as I mentioned, and became the Mournland. There was a lot of them in Breland. They had to get brought up. Karnath didn't have access to them, hence the undead, right? So different nations and their access to Warforged sort of went differently, right? They mostly came up in the southern part of the conflict. So Karnath, Sire, Breland, everybody was fighting everybody else at some point in time, right? Over the course of the last war, the alliances were split all over the place. We were friends one day and then you were fighting that person the next.
But because they're individualistic, they're not hardwired to work for whatever nation that built them.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. They're just people. They're just robot people. Your other races of note are shifters, which are effectively watered down lycanthropes. If you want to think that way, they have animalistic. Sure. They're fuzzy people who can shift into a more animalistic form and have claws and teeth and stuff. It's in a meta sense, it allows you to live the power fantasy of playing a lycanthrope without playing a lycanthrope. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Dragonborn is playing a dragon without playing a dragon, right?
Okay. Makes total sense.
Changelings, which are a big part of this world. Changelings are your little, they're changelings. These again have broken containment out of Eberron, and people play changelings in other worlds. They're effectively, again, you wanted to play a doppelganger, but you can't play an actual doppelganger. A changeling is what it sounds like. Obviously, in a world laden with spycraft and intrigue and all of that, yeah, guess what? They have a lot of jobs.
Yeah, it's a fun class or fun race to play, I'm sure.
Yes. And then you've also got Kalishtar, which is a whole thing I'm not going to explain now. Just know they're weird psionic psychic people that come from a truly insane place. And I'll do my best to kind of summarize it in a little while. But there is a corner of this world that is the most wild stuff, John, you can imagine. It is off the charts cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Okay, we'll talk about it.
All right. You're while we're talking about species, you did mention like nations of goblins and hobgoblins and like having their own independent nation, and then you talked about the orc nation and stuff. So how do those, what we maybe historically think of as just straight up bad people, how does that play out?
Absolutely. So this is a very, as I mentioned, it's a very gray world in morality, right? Because it's more about people following their motivations and stuff like that. And most people's motivations aren't, I want to be evil, right? It's not that. It's like, no, they have pretty rational self-interest. All of the different species have different sort of things going on. So like many nations are a little more focused, like Karnath tends to be much more human. Okay, and stuff like that. Like most of the humans are pretty popular in all of the original sort of core nations. Yes, Droam, as I mentioned, is like a monster nation, but even things like elves. So here I have 3 different types of elves. Okay, you have your more traditional, what we would think of as a Khorvarian elf. It's like a city elf. They live in Breland and Sharn and all over the world, and they've fully adopted into effectively human society, right, as it were. You have a Valinar elf. That's their little known double scimitar. They wield. Those are your horse lords that I talked about.
Ah.
Okay. And then you have the Arenal elves with the death mask. There was a little 5th continent I didn't mention on the original map called Arenal. That is home to the Arenal elves, who they are also undead creators, but they use positive energy to create undead. So they create, like, instead of negative energy undead, right? Think like life draining, bad necrotic energy undead. They use radiant energy to make undead. So they make like radiant, positive, good undead, as it were.
Okay. All right. Wow. There's a lot more.
And they're led by archliches and stuff like that. Like effectively good liches, things of that nature. So
don't worry, Glenda. She's a good lich.
Yes, exactly. That's right. But yeah, the hobgoblins of Dargon, like, again, they're not just rampaging hordes. Like the lower levels of Sharn are mostly occupied by like city goblins and stuff like that, who are just trying to eke out a living, like going to work every day in the forges and stuff, and like trying desperately to scrape a living in the most impoverished section of the city. You know, it's all sorts of stuff like that. So it's all everybody has a home, and like there's no one, if you're a half elf, you're this or something. Like there's a lot of half elves who are pirates in the Lazar principalities. There are half elf storm riders and weather masters in, as I mentioned, in the house. There are half elves that are just city elves that just live and work every day in the city, and so on and so forth. But they're, you know, culturally they have lots of different homes you can seat them in around the world.
And I think that it's another interesting aspect of this world is that nothing is safe or set in stone, but there feels to be, at least in this glimpse in time, a home or a place for most peoples. And a lot of times you'll find where things get really problematic is when there is a group that is completely flushed out. They've got no home. They've got no nation. Their people are spread to the winds.
Yeah, you got a diaspora, right?
Yeah. And here it's almost like, well, we have that. There's probably a number of these newly formed nations that, like, we just want to keep whatever little bit we were able to get, you know?
Correct. They want legitimacy.
Yeah.
Right. Like one of the major plot threads of Droam is that the Night Hags are pushing for the legitimacy of their nation. Like just because we are what you would call monstrous, right? We have cities and society and inns and shops and bars and stuff. Why are we any less people than you? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. So how does this get to I can see where there's a lot of not obvious big bads and villains and stuff. And anybody could be the bad guy, which leaves a lot of decision making in the way that the game goes. But are there kind of typical in this world thought to be, these and by and large are just not good?
Yes, there are still big bads and things that are just evil within the world. I mentioned some of them in passing, like the demonic waste is home to them. You have an interesting selection of things they've chosen in the world as big bads, very unique. So like hags and night hags, like the sisters of Droam they're seeking legitimacy as a nation, but don't misunderstand me. They're not nice people. Okay, they're monsters. Okay, there are plenty of like Medusa and gargoyles and gnolls and things like that live in Droam that just are trying to live and like live their lives and be normal sort of citizens. They're not outwardly evil or anything, but like hags are a big constant villain in the world. Rakshasa are a huge like ancient evil villain in the world. Like their illusion powers, their ability to infiltrate, all of that. Like this world develops Rakshasa as a villain in a big way, which is cool because I've always loved Rakshasa as a villain.
Never trust a tiger head with backwards hands. That's what my mom always told me.
That's right. And then you have the demonic overlords. The overlords are like these ancient big bads. They're like the bads beyond time. So I mentioned the Thrain, the religious zealot nation, and the Silver Flame. Okay. So the Silver Flame is exactly what it sounds like. Like if you walk into the middle of the building of the Great Church of the Silver Flame, like this is a restricted area, but assume you have rights to get in there. What you would see is a literal massive pillar of fire, of silver fire. Okay. That's their god. And it is what that is in reality is an ancient martyr. Like it was a paladin lady who stabbed an overlord and then locked the two of them together in this flame, like for all time. So that silver flame is a combination of one of the overlords and this like most noble of heroes locked in. Basically, this is how that demonic overlord was imprisoned in this eternal flame that burns. And their little speaker, the little like 13-year-old girl or whatever who can interpret, is like the only one who can hear what the paladin inside is saying. Everybody hopes it's the paladin talk.
But they're not sure 100%.
Yes. Always a mystery. Nothing's ever really, people have ideas, concepts. One of the keys to this world is very like everybody's got an idea. You know what I'm saying? Like how magic works. Oh, well, this is what it does. This is how this works. Are you sure about that? No. Very few things are actually like factual dictum. Does that make sense? There's a lot of like, well, this is what our best idea of what's going on.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's very much still big bads in the world. As I said, those things are just outright evil. So you can still do the like when we ran a full, like my 9-year campaign with Kavwin took place in this world. Okay. And as I said, it's a much grayer world overall, which is funny to play a very lawful good character. I had, at the end of the game, when we were 20th level, we were fighting up against one of the demonic Okay. But like throughout the course of that game, we had many political enemies who would then become friends. Classic. One of the best parts about Eberron is that you can run the enemy becomes a friend trope.
Yeah.
Like so easily because people are just following their motivations. Again, you run into somebody, they're set against you, you're fighting them. They're not against you because you're like out and out evil and you're out and out good and you must destroy them for the glory of your god or something, right? Or goodness in general. No, it's like, well, they were trying to do X and you're trying to do Y. And once that situation is resolved, you both might be trying to do Z in the next time you meet. And so now you're allies instead of enemies, right? And that's just like very constant.
That makes total sense. Yeah, it's nothing personal. It's kind of the phrase that I get with this.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I've mentioned a little about religion. So we have our power structures. We've got the nations, we've got the houses, but we're not done because we also do have the gods. Now, the gods of this world are distant and uncaring. Okay. They are.
I got that impression thus far as you've broken things down, that it doesn't seem a direct line impact kind of a world.
Correct. So let's talk about the mythology of this world a little bit, just very quickly. You have the creation myth of this world is that there are 3 great dragons that locked in eternal combat and then held themselves in stasis for eternity. Cerberus, the dragon above, which is the heavens, the sky. Eberron, which is the earth, the dragon, and then Kyber, the dragon below, hell, the underworld. Okay, that kind of thing. The dark places. Your main two sort of religions are the sovereign host and the dark six, who were one set of gods originally and then broke apart. Okay. And the sovereign host, you can worship you tend to worship pantheons as opposed to individual gods. So you worship the host. And there's like 9 different gods in that host. And each one of them has different aspects and things that you would, you offer a prayer to the one about the hearth when you're making dinner, and you offer one to the god of the forge when you're at work, and so on and so forth, right? The dark six is the bad side of all of that. Although even a lot of people in the world will still offer prayers to them to like avoid their wrath. Okay.
Sure.
But they don't show up. It's not like Forgotten Realms, the Time of Troubles. Whether these gods actually exist is a mystery.
Oh.
Like the actual even existence of the gods is nobody's sure. Like you can pray to them and you get prayers. You can pray to the pantheon and you get prayers. You can be a priest without a god and get prayers. Huh. So where this magic comes from is a thing of much scholarly intrigue. Okay. Now, when you die in this world, it has a Greek afterlife. Okay. You understand what I'm saying? Like the gray wastes. You go, you become a shade in the gray wastes, and eventually your individuality and consciousness fades away and you become nothing. That's it. That's your great reward.
Ta-da!
Okay. So that sucks.
That sucks. Yeah.
Now, the other religions, like the Silver Flame is its own religion. They have their own view of what the afterlife is and what happens. The Blood of Vol does not sound like a nice religion. The Blood of Vol's closest analogy, I would say, is like medieval Catholicism. Okay. So Vol is an ancient, ultra-powerful vampire. Whatever, a vampire, I think. Undead. She's still around. She's the god. She's still hanging out. She has a whole like religion dedicated to her. And all of the upper echelons of this religion are just evil through and through. They're terrible people. Okay. They maintain a whole militant order of terrorists called the Emerald Claw. It's a very common villain you fight against. Like they're like the Cobra of the world, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But here's the trick. The Blood of Vol is worshipped pretty widely. It's a very popular religion. Because in the Blood of Vol, what you believe is that you're attaining perfection. All the people who have become undead are martyrs. They've sacrificed their own journey to perfection to guide the flock. Because you believe you can purify yourself in the Blood of Vol. If you're good enough, if you live your truest self, you can eventually become immortal, just becoming purified. So like most of the people who follow the Blood of Vol are just like actually really nice people trying to do their best for their neighbors. So the vast majority of the followers are really nice, great people. Think like acting, it's a very Mormonish religion. Yeah.
Sure.
And that you're like community and stuff like that is what matters, right? Whereas the upper echelons are just evil as sin and just like doing the worst of the worst things and so on and so forth. And the religions themselves, each of them have their own power bases and are vying for control all the same. And they also completely cross national boundaries and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. There's all sorts of Mormon ties in this world, because I assume that 13-year-old girl is just Joseph Smith reading the plates. So,
I mean, it is very much like there. We just have to trust her, right? Is kind of what's going on. Yeah.
No, just only I can read them. So, and that actually the thing that's really interesting with the Blood of Vol, because it is common knowledge in this world what the afterlife is. So if you know that is as well as you can know anything in this world, where it doesn't seem like everything's 100% known, as well as you can know that, two things that worshiping Vol really helps you with. Number one, well, you have something to attain for that would avoid that inevitable demise.
That's exactly right.
And two, unlike all these other motherfuckers, this is a real person. I saw her last week. She was up at the temple. She's around.
To be clear, only like the very, very top undead leaders would ever see Vol, because she's supposed to not exist anymore. Her existence is a mystery, but yeah, she is still. Yeah.
But I mean, there's whispers. There's whispers everywhere.
Yes.
Whispers.
Yes. Vol is the most present of all the gods, other than the Silver Flame that like people will actively see. Yes.
True, but there's like, that's just a bonfire. I mean, whatever.
Correct. It's a big bonfire. There's all sorts of funny things about those kinds of secrets. Like playing this game, you do have to separate player and character knowledge. So, for example, I mentioned Karnath, the nation that's like fascinated by undead. So Kavwin was from Karnath. And he had an undead horse. Like to him, undead were completely normal. So he was like a lawful good paladin that regularly used undead because he just thought they were totally normal. And the leader of Karnath is what's his name? King Caius. Sorry, King Caius the Third. Spoilers: he is not the third. He's King Caius, the original guy.
Whoops.
He's just an immortal vampire who has died and then become his own son multiple times.
I'm my own grandpa.
To stay in charge.
Yes. Okay. Great stuff.
So just fun stuff like that. Okay. Let's I want to talk about some of the other elements of the world. So there's other underlying overarching weird things going on. So for example, what I have here is a picture of a dragon looking at the draconic prophecy. All right. There's this overarching prophecy that's massive about the whole world, written into the stars, spoken through the ages, scattered throughout the lands, called the Draconic Prophecy. And it tells of the future and what will be and what came to pass. Think of this if like Nostradamus was both correct, but still written like Nostradamus, where it's just just unbelievably opaque, right?
Uh-huh.
And so you have all of these like basically the dragons and many human scholars are trying to like decipher the little bits of the prophecy they find and use it to gain knowledge of the future and what's going on. There's like all these weird little elements that run throughout the world that are other sources of adventure, right? Things like that.
I love that. Okay.
And I'll talk a moment here about all the continents just very quickly because there were 3 other main continents. Very fast run through here. As I said, Khorvaire is where we've been focusing on, where most of this stuff we're talking about happens. But the other continents are there. So Zendrik is the other most common continent you will visit. Did you ever play Dungeons & Dragons Online, the MMO?
No, I did not.
Okay. So that was set on Zendrik.
Okay.
And Zendrik is a continent that a long time ago was a kingdom ruled by the giants when they were like powerful and strong before they were laid low. And is now ruins and jungle and stuff like that. Okay. So it is the place, if you want to have your Indiana Jones adventure, you go to Zendrik, right? You map through, you're exploring ancient tombs and ruined temples and finding artifacts from ancient times and that kind of stuff, right? And specifically what you're usually finding are dragon shards. This is one of those common things you're trying to locate. Yes. I mentioned the 3 dragons, Sybaris, Eberron, and Khorvaire. Each of them has a corollary shard. Sybaris shard, Eberron shard, and Khorvaire shard. And those are what power Artifice. One of the things that can power Artifice. These are just like naturally magic rocks. So this is like your internal combustion engine find, the discovery of these rocks, right?
Yeah.
You can just kind of like build things that you can plug and play them into as a power source. For like a magical power source.
Right.
Putting it very simply. Does that make sense? I mean,
this shouldn't be a far stretch if we think instead of using dragon rocks, we were using liquid dinosaurs. So it all checks, right?
Yes, we are using liquid dinosaurs. They're using like and these rocks, you're more accurate than you think. A Sybaris shard is literally supposed to be the body of Sybaris. When he became the heavens, he exploded and rained down Sybaris shards. Right? When Eberron hardened into the earth, part of him hardened into these crystals, and so on and so forth. It's literally supposed to be, yes, like oil is dead dinosaurs, right?
Okay. It's their own take on body of Christ. Instead of eating the crouton of Christ, you get this little shard of Khorvaire.
And like Zendrik is a home for a lot of these shards. They're just you can find a ton of them all scattered around. We'll come back to this in a second. Hold on. Sorry, I got one piece ahead before I get into the next one. All right, other continents. Your 2 other continents, just to quickly explain them. You don't tend to go to either of these very often. They're the sort of underexplored parts of the world. Okay, Arganessen is really cool. Arganessen is the continent of dragons. That's where they live. They live there. That's their continent. Now, they have people who live and work amongst them, like humans who live and work amongst them, and all the races. But their land, their door is closed. Thank you very much. We are not accepting visitors today. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And they have like massive barbarian tribes they maintain that will like kill you if you land on their coasts, stuff like that.
Ooh.
This is a land of dragons, like a lot of them, not a few, a lot. The whole societies, thousands and thousands and thousands of them. Okay,
Why?
it's their continent, and they spend most of their time researching magic and the draconic prophecy. That's what fascinates them. They're immortal lives. They're trying to unravel, or immortal, but very long lives. They're trying to unravel the prophecy. It's a neat world. And then finally, the weird one, the one I mentioned is going to like just blow your skirt up. This is a really hard one to explain. Okay, Sarlona is the other continent. This is where Kalishtar comes. Sarlona is if Geiger and Lovecraft had a weird nightmare about what a dream could look like, that would be Sarlona. Okay?
Okay.
It is ruled by the Kori, which are like these ancient monster, otherworldly representations of the dreaming dark. Like an entity that exists in dreams and nightmares on an adjacent plane that reaches into our world through minds. And the Kalishtar are the people who fight against them. They have like basically they're blank slates. They're tabula rasas, sort of is the best way to explain it, where they can't take over their minds. Okay. Otherwise, they are beings, weird tentacle nightmare monsters that poke into our world, possess people, control them, and seek to spread madness throughout the world. It's just Looney Tunes land. It's just Looney Tunes land.
That sounds like a pretty obvious big bad, overarching ominous thing in this world. Also, I assume
the Kori and the Dreaming Dark is another one of the big bads. That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. I assume that nation doesn't have a high tourism.
No. Not really booking many summer trips. No Viking cruises through through Sarlona. That is correct. Okay. Yes, that's right. That's right. It's a wackadoo land. Other funny things. These are just like fun facts. So here's a fun one, John. So this world has a ring, like a ring, like Saturn.
Rings of Saturn. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So like when you look up at night, you see the ring going around the world. This world also has 12 moons. There's a secret 13th moon.
13th. There's always a 13th moon. There's always.
But it's dark. It's hidden in shadow.
Okay.
Most of these moons are equivalent or larger and brighter than Earth's moon.
Okay.
So nighttime in this world is real weird. It's not very dark.
Constant moon ping pong going across the horizon.
Yes. Imagine think of how bright it is at night. So the Earth's moon is about as reflective as tar. Okay. So like think how much light a tar street reflects. That's how reflective the Earth's moon is. Okay.
Uh-huh.
They have 12 moons that are mostly as large or larger than Earth's moon and 10 to 20 to 30% more reflective. So it's bright at night. It's a real light show going on.
Wow.
It's wild.
So it's really gets no darker than like a dusk kind of feel.
Correct. Yep. Because you've also got the big ring that's creating a bunch of light too.
Right. So when you showed this picture and I was counting out the moons, I was like, does that mean that the Earth's moon is the secret 13th moon?
No, it's just there for comparison. There's a bunch of different pictures of the moons. This is one I happen to like. They've talked about this. This is like a huge area of contention in the player base. Like a bunch of people have tried to unpack this moon thing and what it looks like at night because it's so insane.
Which of these moons do the Moonanites live on is what I want to know. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you say that. Each of the moons is aligned to one of the 12 planes, secretly 13. And the planes and the moons move in rotation with each other. So another great source of adventure is that the planes will become coterminous with Eberron, and those zones will get thin. So, for example, the plane of fire and the moon of fire, the moon will come close, the plane will get close, and you'll have an area of the land where suddenly, fires just start. Everything is hot. You have unusually warm summers. Fires will just start. Little fire sprites and elementals will start busting out, just going crazy. If you have trapped a fire elemental for a magical purpose, it will now break its shackles, that kind of stuff. and all these sorts of things. You can be coterminous with the land of the plane of the dead, and then like those spirits who are in the gray waste who haven't wasted away yet will come back and walk in the real world for a few days, and you can like talk to your ancestors and stuff like that. Yeah, all sorts of fun things.
I like that's like it's a thing that there's a reasoning behind it, and you can see it in the world, you can understand it because it's tied to something tangible. It being tied to these moons and checking their orbit and being like, and that's probably obviously with all the different houses and everything. I'm guessing there's somebody, I don't know if it's Team Doppler radar or if it's a different group that's like, well, we're actually the calendarites, and we figure out the orbits of the moon and all those kinds of things, and they would know that it's possible in this region with this plane.
You got it. As I said, magic is science. So you're exactly right. It's tracked, it's watched. They know when a zone's going to become coterminous. It can sometimes happen unexpectedly, but that can be a whole reason for adventure. Hey, yes. Adventurers, this region wasn't supposed to become coterminous with this plane for another 2 years, but yet now it's happening and things are going crazy. We need you to go there and figure out why.
Right. Boom. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. First stop, we need to go to the observatory because that's where the scientist says this is all a muck. Boom, boom, yes. Boom.
That's right. So just a lot of little fun. That's what I'm saying. There's so many little sources of adventure, and like it's just crazy how many different things you can do. You mentioned aerial combat. If you like aerial combat, this is a great world for that. All sorts of adventure is possible. Here's a fun little fight going on.
Yes.
There's not just big airships. There's also floating skiffs and stuff like that. Lots of Sharn itself, as I mentioned, is very vertical. Carrying around items of featherfall is quite smart. Little featherfall tokens are a very common magical item that most people in Sharn carry because you can just get knocked off a bridge and fall like 3,000 feet. Oh,
yeah,
that sucks.
You don't do that twice is the good thing.
You carry a little featherfall token, so that kind of thing.
Yeah,
but yeah. This to me is a very great Eberron combat scene. This is very Eberron, right? You've got the wizard flying around, the Warforged wizard flying around using his staff. The Knoll attackers are all on some kind of weird little flying magical things. The PCs are on a little air skiff trying desperately, and that barbarian is making a real choice.
Yeah. He's like, well, I'm either gonna land on your little glowing green magic surfboard, or I'm not.
Yep.
After I kill you.
That's right.
Yeah. This is fun because this world is, again, I did not know a lot about it. I basically knew Warforged, and that led my brain down to a whole pathway of Artifice world, which it feels like it's there. That is kind of a thematic feel to the world that gives it some texture, like you talked about. But that is not the world as a whole.
Correct. You really can. What's great about Eberron is that you can choose to dial in and focus on particular elements. Like I myself have run multiple campaigns here. I did a whole Ondair campaign that was just focusing around like the magical school. Didn't really have much to do with Artifice because Ondair doesn't do as much Artifice. It was more just about magic and the nature of magic and the planes, right? And that kind of thing. And that was a whole sort of theme of that campaign. We've done games that were focused mostly on spycraft and intrigue. We've done a detective game here where you're just like solving mysteries. We've done a school game in Eberron where we're like at Moorgrave University and like students just trying to solve the mysteries that are going on at the school. And so like it has lots of places you can zoom in and dial in on and have that be the focus, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And it feels like it's actually as a fun shell for your own writing of your own campaign and figuring out the game that you want to play. It feels like most games you could find a really fun niche within this world to play that out, and then you're just able to flesh it out and bring more life to it, understanding this world as a whole.
Absolutely. Like, let me say this. If you love a good heist, you mentioned going on your Griffin heist at the beginning.
Yeah.
Boy, this is the world for heists. Like, this is the world for heists, man. There are so many things to heist and so many challenges and all that kind of stuff. It's great.
Right.
Here's another little image of art I like of just like, kind of a fight in Sharn. Again, you got a little Warforged and a pilot on these like magical skiffs. Just I thought like there's a lot of cool art for Eberron because it just sort of inspires this kind of thing. So
yeah,
this was a
neat
unique
aesthetic. And it feels almost like very noir style art, even like it's inspired that, which I love.
Yes. The world has a very noir / art deco, depending on where you are. Again, different areas of the world have different aesthetics, but yes.
Very, very cool. Well, our goal, and as we were going through this, I kind of jotted down what I want to name this, the name of this episode, but breakdown was the word that I thought was really valuable, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Is what we did here, you did here, was a really well encompassed breakdown of the key things of this world that in an hour and a half of this episode, you really get a good understanding of what is Eberron, what makes it tick, what makes it unique, what it would be like to play in a game there, and then all the possibilities of not just being pigeonholed into a certain kind of game or a certain kind of campaign. Vince,
That's
do you have any
I want to take you through
thoughts?
just a couple of final thoughts on it. Yes.
Okay.
One, do you like dogs? I love dogs. I saw your dog wandering around in the background.
Yeah,
How about a robot dog? You can get robot dogs in this world because there are also like warforged dogs. They're not intelligent, sentient, but they're like dogs. They have the intelligence of dogs, so that's fun. You can get a mechanical dog as a pet.
It's pretty sweet. They were
one of our games. The detective had a magical dog in the group, and I had to go into one of the other planes when fight Zugtmoy to get his stupid mechanical dog back because he fell through a hole. And I did that. So there you go. These are the Umbrenga, which are like again, just talking about really interesting takes. The drow of Zendrick don't live in caves. They live on the surface. They have these cool acid burned tattoos on themselves, like the Umbrengan elves. Like, just look at these guys. Don't they look amazing?
Yeah. That's
awesome.
Sweet. Wow.
Yeah, they have just like a very cool culture based in the ancient magic of what Zendrick was. They lived under servitude of the giants back in the day, and they maintained their culture. So just like a lot of little cool corners you can go explore. They use chitinous insect armor, as you can see.
Oh, sweet.
This is just a wonderful picture, again, of like, I believe this is actually meant to be like Vol or one of Vol's servants. And you can see here. So I thought that was really cool. Kind of the Emerald Claw fighting against them. This is your sovereign host symbol and so on. Wayne Reynolds really defined the aesthetic of this world. So if you like Pathfinder art, I mean, he defined Eberron as much as Larry Elmore defined Dragonlance.
Yeah, well, fourth edition too. I think he did a lot of fourth edition book art as well. So that makes sense in the Eberron books in fourth edition.
And then finally, one last little note. Do you like trains?
No, but go on.
I love trains. Have you ever traveled by train? It's really wonderful. At any rate, there are lightning rails in this too. House Orion, one of their main things they maintain is lightning rail. So yes, you might say, but Vince, can I do Murder on the Orient Express? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, there are lightning rails that track across the continent. As you can see, they follow these little lightning stones. See a little stone track underneath it. And there are two major rails because when Sire blew up, they don't connect anymore. You can't get from one side of the continent to the other on the train.
That makes sense.
But you can ride the train. That's like conveyance, airships, lightning rails, magical conveyance from Orion, teleportation through Civis and other people. Like, there's just lots of interesting ways of conveyance. And the lightning rail is just such a neat part of the world that provides another source for adventure. And I think trains are super cool, and lightning trains are even cooler.
Yeah.
So there you go. That was my final little fun thing to leave you with.
And it ties back into the core of the Artifice being so ever present in this world and what makes it unique while still feeling fantasy. And that's one thing that I'm taking away from this is this still feels very much like a fantasy world. It does not feel pushed too far one direction or another where you don't feel like you're necessarily playing Dungeons and Dragons anymore. It still feels that way, but there's just, you know what you love, you know what Dungeons and Dragons is, and that this little tweak is like really interesting and it really will stand out for you. I dig that. I dig these little stones. You can just picture that it's just flying across them with the lightning shot underneath.
Exactly. Just like just zipping across the landscape.
I dig it. And he thought about traversing and transportation and all of this in the world building as it was not only tells the story of the world, but also able to understand that and see how you could use that in your games. It's kind of nice when you can draw that direct line. Sometimes you need that little assistance.
The world feels real. right? Like there's a, like you mentioned the interdependence between the houses. What I mean there is like everybody's motivations and the way they act and the things they do is like logical. It's an interdependent world. Things don't just exist in the void because, oh, well, we needed some orcs here, right?
Yes.
Like things have a history and an interdependence and a reliability on each other and an interactivity, and it makes for really compelling gameplay. You have so many different types of adventures you can run, whether you zoom in or zoom out. And it just is such a unique and compelling experience. It is truly one of my favorite D&D worlds. And yeah, I love it. I hope I've shared my enthusiasm for it with everybody, and people maybe haven't played there, go check it out.
Thanks everybody for joining us today. We went a little bit long today, but there was good reason. And Vince had a lot to share on Eberron and help you kind of paint that picture if it's something you've looked into and wanted to learn more, or this is your very first kind of deep dive into the world of Eberron. I hope that you get excited, whether you play in this game or in a different world. And if you like this deep dive, this full breakdown of a world or setting, please let us know in the comments. If you're listening to us, head over to YouTube and put a comment in there, because if you like this, we will do more. Vince, his brain is filled with useless knowledge, much of it about Dungeons and Dragons. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We had a great time. I hope you did too. And make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you give us a thumbs up or push all the buttons. Vince, what other things do they need to do?
If they do like this, no, just tell us you like it. Tell us what world you'd want us to break down next. What world have you always been curious about but never really looked into? We'll give you the overrun. So tell us what you want to see.
All right. We'll see you next week, everybody. Bye-bye.